going on, everyone? Hope you all are doing good. So in today's video, I wanted to review a couple of really high-end Bluetooth headphones. I've been looking for Bluetooth headphones ever since pretty much I've had my YouTube channel for the last couple of years, and of all the ones I reviewed, I've not really come across any that I've been completely happy with. So when I came across these are the Sony MDR1000x's. I was really excited about the potential of them. I read about them on digitalaudioReview.net's website, and the guy that runs that site's a pretty high-end audiophile. He reviews a lot of high-end products. And he said these sounded really, really great for wireless headphones. So I got them in, and then when I was searching for these, shopping for them, I came across the Sennheiser PXC550s. These are both in the same price range, and it seems like regardless of what I spend on Bluetooth headphones, whether it's $100 or $500, I always come away a little disappointed. And these two aren't cheap by any means. These are both $400 headphones, and for $400 the expectations are really high. They better not have even one little issue with them, or to me they're not going to be worth it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare both of these kind of side by side and let you know how they worked out. A little bit of a spoiler, they both did kind of have deal-breaking issues, which I'll get into in just a minute, but let's go ahead and take a closer look. So here we can see both headphones out of the box, and just to talk a little bit first about the design of each, I really like the way both of these look. The Sennheisers look a little bit better actually on my head, which may not be a big consideration to you, but if I'm gonna spend $400 on a pair of headphones, I want them to not make me look goofy or just be so big and bulky. But anyway, both of them are pretty good. Build quality is really nice. They both have some plastic on them, of course, but you know, it's not a plastic band going across the top of these Sony, so they seem to be pretty durable. They're lightweight. You know, not like Beats where there's plastic going across the top and they have a tendency to crack. Same with here. This is kind of leather-bound headband across the top. I don't know what material is inside, but it does seem to be like a flexible kind of material. They both fold up pretty nicely, so you can travel with them if that's what you're going to use them for. I think Bluetooth headphones is definitely something you want to travel with. At least that's the use case that I use them for. The Sonys are more comfortable, and you'll see there's a little bit bigger ear hole compared to the tapered version of the Sennheisers here on the bottom, and the clamping force wasn't as tight, but the Sennheisers weren't uncomfortable by any means. So both headphones were really comfortable to wear for a really long time, and neither really gave me ear fatigue even after hours of use. The buttons on the Sony, you'll see here, you turn it on with the button on the bottom. So as far as the controls, the Sonys are pretty straightforward. There's physical buttons, which is nice. So you hold that button down and it turns them on. And noise canceling comes on by default, unfortunately, and there's no way to disable that. So you just have to press that to turn the noise canceling off, and then it finally shuts off there. And unfortunately, that means if you don't want to use noise canceling, you have to do this every time you turn the headphones on. Now, I don't personally use noise canceling too much, but it is a nice feature to have on these headphones, especially if you travel with them and stuff. I didn't extensively test the noise canceling effect, the active noise canceling on these, except for around my house and turning them on. I couldn't hear anybody in my house, or when I had music playing on my home speakers. It does a good job of canceling out both of these headphones. So I'm not a huge user of noise canceling, but it's nice to have that. Now, one really big negative I found out about the Sonys is when you have it try to connect it to multiple devices, it won't connect to the active device until you disconnect it on the other devices. So here you can see on my iPad it's not connected, and that won't let me connect until I actually go into my iPhone and click disconnect on this one. Alright, then it will connect. But you can see the Sennheisers just stay connected, and this is how most Bluetooth devices work. So it's connected here, and it will just play whatever, the headphones will just play whatever is active. So I can select that. Hopefully I'm demonstrating this in a way that makes sense, but here it will play. Okay, and then if I play it on here, it will start playing on the Sennheisers as well. But the Sonys don't do that. The Sonys will only let you connect once you disconnect the other device, so that's a really huge usability negative. There's also this ambient sound button on the Sonys, which basically just let you turn on like a voice mode, which allows more voices to pass through your headphones if you're in an environment where you're listening for something but you still have your headphones on, or you just put it in the normal mode. Now likewise on the Sennheisers, there's a manual switch here. You can switch it on to 1 or 2 or 0 if you want to turn off noise canceling, but 1 basically puts it in an adaptive mode where it responds more to the ambient noise around you, and then 2 just puts it on maximum noise cancellation. The Sennheisers also have the sound mode button, which lets you put it on a couple different modes like club and voice or movie. And that, it works just depending on what songs you're listening to. It can improve the frequency response. So that's kind of a nice feature to have as well. Now, finally, the Sennheisers do offer their own app where you can tune, set your EQ settings and some other further noise canceling settings as well. So it's definitely a nice option to have. Now, let's just go over some of the buttons on here. Both of the headphones are rechargeable by USB, as you can see right there. And both of these have really long battery life. This is rated at 30 hours, and this one's rated at 22. And that's both of them with noise cancellation turned off. The weird thing about these is the audio plug. Both of these headphones can be used with a regular 3.5 millimeter cable, and they don't have to be charged up for that, so you can use them dead. They'll sound better when they're powered on, actually. So you can use them without when the batteries are dead, but unfortunately, these Sennheisers use not necessarily proprietary, but they don't use the regular 3.5 millimeter cable, which I think is a huge mistake. They use this guy, which you can see is a lot smaller than normal. Here's the regular 3.5, and you can see the one next to it. So the chances are, if you're traveling and you don't have this cable, forget about it. If your battery dies, you're not going to be able to use it unless you find somebody with this cable. So you can't just use a regular auxiliary cable. And to me, that's a big miss. So both of them kind of have annoying things. This with the proprietary audio cable, and this one with having to turn off the noise canceling every time. Both of these headphones use touch controls, gesture controls, I guess they would call them, on the right hand ear cup, right? So what you do, they're more or less the same thing. Now, you could use both of these headphones, to take and receive phone calls, and both work just fine for that. I didn't have any issues with those in the short little bit that I tested them out with. But you control volume by doing that up and down, right? Up and down on this. And if you want to skip forward tracks, you forward and back, forward and back. The problem with the Sonys, which was the absolute deal breaker for me, is it was so hard to adjust the volume up and down without accidentally skipping the track forward or backwards. And that was extremely frustrating, and no amount of practice or however careful I was able to avoid that. The usability of it just completely destroyed it because you can't really easily adjust the volume. Now, if you're not going to use the gesture controls in here, you can use your phone to completely control your track play, or whatever device you have. You can control your tracks from your device or the volume, but I like it on the headphone, and the fact that I couldn't really control it on here was a deal breaker to me. The other thing is it has a feature where when these are on your headphone, if you do that, or when these are sat on your head, when you cup your hand over like this, it kind of cuts out the music and lets you hear people talking to you without actually having to take the headphones off. And that works okay, but to me it seems a little bit weird. I'd rather just remove it off my head real quick. It's just kind of awkward. The Sennheisers were a lot easier to control with the volume and controls. There was a lot less mistakes, although it did happen once in a while, but not to the point where it was aggravating. The other cool thing about the Sennheisers is when you control the volume up and down, when you do this, it does it in multiple steps.
Volume max.
More than one step at a time. Whereas the Sonys, you'd have to do this, which contributed to the, to the mistakes. Like you have to do this every time you want to do one notch of volume down. You have to keep doing that, and it was just awkward. And like I said, you would end up skipping tracks. I did look for a firmware update for these on Sony's site, and there hasn't been anything yet, so I don't know if they're going to fix that, but I wouldn't hold my breath on those. I wanted to cover one other thing with these Sennheisers. The way that you turn these off and on, they don't really go on a standby mode. Well, I've noticed the Sonys did. Like I could listen to something, set the Sonys down, and stop playing while I was playing. I would come back, and the Sonys would always still have their battery power. With the Sennheisers, not so much. The standby, I don't know what the deal was, but they would just always be out of batteries every time I went to pick them up, unless I physically turn them off. Now, the way you turn these off is you turn the ear cups.
Power off.
All right, that's off. Now here's on. Okay, fine. So you might say, hey, why don't you just turn them off every time? That's fine, but this little switch in there is so finicky. You see? The power's on, and I haven't clicked it into place yet. There, now it's clicked. So it actually turns on before you actually click it on. And this is a little funky, but hey, if you're going to be putting these in your bag, they might accidentally flip on. And in my experience, they would flip on, because my usage scenario is listening to them here on the couch on my bed, and when I would just toss them to the side, if this thing clicked back on somehow, sitting on a blanket or a pillow, I would come back to use these, and it's happened more than once, and the batteries would be dead. So to me, that was a deal breaker. This stupid little on-off switch is so finicky, it renders basically the headphones unusable to me. I don't know why they didn't just put a physical switch on here if they want me to turn it off. So their independent deal-breaking issues notwithstanding, how did these headphones sound? Well, let's start with the Sonys. I have to say the Sonys were easily the best wireless headphones I've ever listened to. They didn't sound like, to me, Bluetooth headphones always have, you can sense the compression in them, at least in my experience, even on high-end ones. It sounds a little bit like things sound a little watery. The high ends, they don't really have all the distinct noises in the high end, and the compression is just definitely there on Bluetooth. You can only get so much audio fidelity, in my opinion, out of Bluetooth, the current Bluetooth standard. But now with that being said, the Sonys were the best sounding I've ever heard. I could detect almost no compression in any music I was listening to. Played low, everything was clear. They just had a warm, rich sound to them, the way music should sound. And yeah, they just were really good. They didn't distort, so I was really impressed with that. They have aptX built in. I didn't even use the aptX because I don't have devices that use that codec, but if you did, they're going to sound even better. They also have their own LDAC technology built in, which is Sony's proprietary kind of, I think, algorithm. I don't know what the exact word is. It's like their proprietary kind of like compression technology, I think, what has more bandwidth. But you need an LDAC-enabled player, so I think Sony Xperia is really the only players that have that built in. So if you have one of those players, these are going to sound even better. But even without that, just standard Bluetooth audio, listen to Spotify, best I've ever heard easily. So I was very happy with that. Unfortunately, they had the deal-breaking control issues. Now, if we're going to talk about the Sennheisers, all the Sennheiser headphones I've ever listened to, they all kind of have a certain sonic characteristic, which is to emphasize the mid-range tones, so like vocals and just sounds that are neither too high or too low, the mid frequencies. And these were no different. They sounded great, but I did detect some compression in them. As far as the quality overall, I still was happy with them. I mean, they sounded definitely not as good as the Sonys, but as far as Bluetooth speakers, they sounded great. The problem is when you listen to both of these kind of back to back and switching off, you're like, these Sonys are so much better. It's hard to justify spending $400 on these when they don't sound as good. And just listening to so many Bluetooth headphones, what I notice is, unless you're critically listening to music and trying to pick out what's wrong with how the drivers in the headphones sound or what have you, it doesn't really matter. I mean, after a few minutes, you just start listening to the music, and as long as the music sounds good enough, it's good enough. You just start enjoying the music rather than trying to pick every little thing. I mean, if you want really high-end fidelity, don't buy wireless headphones. I guess that's really my whole point. These are really expensive headphones at $400, and to me, they just didn't really deliver. Luckily, Bluetooth 5.0 spec has just been released, so we'll be able to look forward to new headphones coming out this year using that. But anyways, thanks a lot for watching, you guys. Y'all take care.